that I think you will thoroughly enjoy called Heavy Rain. It's exactly what we've been moving toward and learning about, and it's so good. So I'll get that ordered probably when I get back, or maybe before I leave, and get it to you. And we don't have to go through it or anything. I just think you guys will thoroughly enjoy it. Okay, so we have made it to the end, I believe, of chapter 3 of Hebrews. So at this rate, we'll be done by 2022. Of course, we did have the ecclesia, in between there. But so to me, two of the most important chapters actually in the Bible is Hebrews 3 and 4. It's extremely practical, as we've seen. It goes right into the core of unbelief, how it works, what it does, how to combat it. And so if any of you have missed any of the chapter 3, especially when we get down into if you'll hear his voice, the unbelief aspect, all of that, go back and watch them because they're really important. And by the way, is that like a King James? So I might have told you guys this, and I'll probably explore this even more when we get to that section. But in Hebrews, I think it's chapter 12. Yeah. Verse 23. So I just discovered this last week, and I was telling the Arizona group about this, and I read it in Cosmopolitan Christian. Did I already tell you all this? That in Hebrews 12:23, where it says to the general assembly, that word assembly is agora, which means marketplace. Now that's very interesting to me. So I'm not quite, because y'all know me, right. I'm all about that, and I'm not sure why Paul used that word. And then the word church there is ecclesia. So when we get to chapter 12, hopefully before 2022, I will definitely be kind of diving into that. I do know that one of the areas where the blood of Jesus actually shed first was the marketplace, when he was on the Via Dolorosa. That was a marketplace center. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Okay, so we're now in Hebrews chapter 3 out of the Passion Bible. We're going to read verses 16 through 19, and then we're going to read one of my favorite stories in the Bible, because this guy just mic drop right on the Pharisees. Bam! Okay, so let's start with 16, where it talks about the same people who were delivered from bondage and brought out of Egypt by Moses were the ones who heard and still rebelled. They grieved God for 40 years by sinning in their unbelief until they dropped dead in the desert. So God swore an oath that they would never enter, and I love this phrase, into his calming place of rest. I would underline that phrase. Calming place of rest. All because they disobeyed him. It is clear that they could not enter into their inheritance because they wrapped their hearts in unbelief. I thought that was good too. But I think we can see the implication here is their inheritance was that calming place of rest. Okay? All right, so unbelief is like a virus. What's interesting about a virus is a lot of times it can be in your body, like 2-3 days? Is it longer sometimes? I don't know. Before you have any symptoms.
Depends on the virus. It can be 2 weeks.
Okay. So you can have, and most people have some form of virus. It depends on the immune system, if it's operating like God designed it. But you can have a virus in your body and you don't see its effects for a while. It's the same thing with unbelief. It can be in there. It can be even dormant. There's some viruses that can be in you that all of a sudden a gene is turned on, okay, through whatever reason, poor health choices, stress, lack of sleep, whatever it is, and now you're fighting something and you have symptoms. Well, it's the same thing. And so that's why I ask the Lord, be ruthless with me. show me anything in there that I'm not aware of, which kind of goes with the word that Kathy had, of, okay, because the thing with viruses is it begins to infect parts of you that cause damage, right? That all of a sudden when you try to do something like train or go to work or whatever it is, you're hit, right, with, or if you're going through a rough time and you need all of your energy reserves, all of your mental and emotional capacity, all of a sudden you can't do it. And so unbelief is just like that. It gets in you. You may not see it. It spreads quickly. It infects quickly. And it stops movement quickly. So all of a sudden, you're on your back fighting this thing.
Do you think that's like the hope deferred? It sits there.
Absolutely.
You know, and you don't even realize maybe you have it.
Mm-hmm.
And then something comes up, and then it reverts back to, it builds on the hope deferred. I'll
Right.
put it that way.
Absolutely. And the thing with hope deferred, I like expectation deferred. You know, the way you process an expectation that's deferred is it's either not yet, right? Or there's something in you that needs to be worked through so that you can handle the very thing that you're receiving. You know? So it's like when I look at things that God is doing now, I actually had gone back to my business planner and I was pulling, because I just got done. It was almost like losing a best friend. I'm like, I think I need another one of these. Anyway, and I was going, and I had probably 2 years of business ideas and vision and to-do lists and all those things that have led me to where I am now. And one of the things was a mastermind, and I had in there specific things I wanted in the mastermind. Well, guess what? That's happening now. If I would not have recognized that sometimes the things that we've believed God for, let's use right language, right? Not believing God for, because that puts you in the future, right? So things that we have believed God for because we received our answer when we prayed, a lot of times it's the necessary components and people that must be in place where all of a sudden click, click, click. It's a domino effect. You're now living that expectation. So when there's hope deferred, it doesn't offend God at all to go and ask Him, hey, is this because it's not yet, or is this something in me? Those are two questions. Is this a not yet, or is this something in me needs to be developed? Okay? Just like you wouldn't expect a child to drive a car, it's the same thing. So those two questions are very, very important. So an example of the second question, is there something in me? So whenever it was time to start building wealth, which the first step was adjusting how you interact with wealth, because believe it or not, there is a relationship we have with money. It's just, that's how it is. Money is neutral. It's you that can make it good or bad. So whenever the first step was, okay, Lord, how do I build wealth? He said, well, we need to develop some things in you, and we need to get rid of some things in you. And I was like, okay, and that's where it started. So here I am believing, God at the time for wealth, and it was no problem to receive it. There's scientific laws. You can get wealth very easily, actually. But in the kingdom, it's simply, are you ready to handle it? Because He will delay if it means your destruction. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So there are just those two questions are very, very important. If you don't process hope deferred, that's so good, Kathy. If you don't process it correctly, it will turn into unbelief or even doubt. And it will interfere even with prophetic words. All of a sudden stuff's coming up that you didn't expect, like we experienced Friday, not saying you had unbelief. But it just, wow, I went to this, and then how did I end up here? That's what happens when you have things that happen to you. So what's amazing, and this is incredible about unbelief, is it's not swayed by evidence. Unbelief is never swayed by evidence because it's sourced in a lie. And any evidence to the contrary, it's swatted away. Well, I don't believe that. Well, why not? Why don't you believe that? Have you studied it on your own? Do you have hope deferred? Do you have a situation where you believe for someone to be healed of cancer and they died, so now you're not wanting to do that again because you're afraid you'll be hurt, which is cowardice? What exactly in you just doesn't believe that way, right? So if you can give me a legitimate doctrinal argument on why you don't believe that, then we can have a discussion. But if you, like most Democrats, don't have a reasonable argument, then I don't want to talk to you, right? So that's the importance of, okay, why do we not believe certain things? So the lie has to be addressed. And that only works in those who have a heart that wants to hear transformative truth and then take the action necessary to implement it in your life. So those entrenched in religious thought are actually the hardest to reach because they believe the darkness they have is light. That's the problem. They believe that what they believe is light. And the perfect example is in John chapter 9. Okay, so this guy, I love this guy. So we're going to spend probably the rest of the instruction in here. And this will be very important. You're going to learn some ministry things too to do. Because one of the things that you have to do in ministry is inspire faith. So if you're ministering to someone and you don't see faith, because faith is very tangible. You can see it, you can feel it. It's like all of a sudden there's an agreement, right? And it's when you get that agreement, it's actually very easy to heal people because it's their faith that makes them whole. It takes the pressure off of you as a minister. Now, if they're not in that place, then you have to sometimes help them get there. But here, we'll start with verses 1 through 7. And so it says, afterward, as Jesus walked down the street, he noticed a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Teacher, whose sin caused this guy's blindness? His own or the sin of his parents? Which is stupid, because he was born blind. Okay? So religious questions are dumb. Where people say there's no such thing as a stupid question, actually there is. I have a lot that have been asked of me. So Jesus answered, neither. Now, doctrine can get made out of this next statement that's incorrect, so got to be careful. It happened to him so that you could watch him experience God's miracle. While I'm with you, it is daytime, and we must do the works of God who sent me while the light shines. For there is coming a dark night when no one will be able to work. As long as I am with you, my life is a light that pierces the world's darkness. Then Jesus spat on the ground, made some clay with his saliva. Then he anointed the blind man's eyes with the clay. And he said to the blind man, now go and wash the clay from your eyes in the ritual pool of Siloam. So he went and washed his face, and as he came back, which is interesting, he simply obeyed. And then as he came back, as he's walking back, he could see for the first time in his life. Okay, several things are going on here. I want to break it down. The first thing I want to address is the religiosity. You know what? Does it seem chilly to y'all? I'm like, man, I don't normally get hot, but it's on 72. Okay, I want to address the religiosity, of the disciples. Okay, so they're walking down the street. They notice this guy born blind, which is very important. And they start talking about him as if he's not even there. Right. He's blind, not deaf. So here they start talking about him like he's not even there. And they also reveal a dominant mindset that was back then but is also here today. And that is, whose sin caused this guy's blindness, right? So whenever a Christian fights a sickness, the first thought most people go to is, oh, they must have sinned. Now, we talked a little bit about this last week where sickness is a result of sin, but it's not necessarily a personal sin, although it can be. So like when the Lord said, hey, what you're doing, you better cut it out or you're going to find yourself in a worse position after he healed the narc, the tattletale. Okay, so with this situation, they immediately go to the dominant thought, sin always has to be the result of some type of sin within either the parents or the person themselves, which is actually not outside of the Old Testament. It's like, I will visit the sin up to how many generations? I mean, there's a lot of scripture that actually supported that doctrine, okay? So then, again, the guy was born blind. A baby in a womb can't sin. What is it going to do, suck its thumb wrong? Or accidentally kick the mom in the rib cage, and that's a sin of dishonoring the parent. You know, like, it's just a silly thing. And so, you know, again, they're learning. They're trying to figure this thing out. But here's the thing I want to point out. The disciples were viewing this man through sin and intellectualizing a very real problem for the blind man with no solutions. That's what religion does. There's no solutions. So they weren't coming like, okay, Lord, we've been hanging out with you. We've seen you stop a, demonic storm. So we, cast out legion from a man. We've seen you multiply food. We've seen you do all of this stuff. And instead of them immediately saying the right question, right? You always want to ask the right question. Instead of saying, Lord, this man has been born blind. What's the solution? What are we supposed to do here? He could have said, well, what do you think? And then they could have said, we need to heal this man. But no, they instead went into this intellectual religious conversation as if the man's not even there. But here's what Jesus was doing. So where he said, neither, it happened to him so that you could watch him experience God's miracle. Oh, now all of a sudden the blind man is like, wait,
What?
he just said something that is totally different. Yes, I'm about to experience God's miracle. So for the first time, a rabbi was saying, instead of, this is your fault, a rabbi was saying, you're about to see this guy experience a miracle. See, oh, I love that. What was he doing? Sparking faith. A match went to that dry heart of accusation, and this is my fault or my parents' fault, and all of a sudden there's a fire lit, and he's like, I'm about to experience God's miracle. That's what we're supposed to do. I remember when I had mono, everything I heard was, you must be in some type of sin. That's probably why you have it. Let me tell you, when you're fighting to get well, that's not very helpful. I was already asking the Lord, is there anything that I've done that I need to adjust, just to make sure? It didn't help at all. So then when those same people wanted to pray for me, you know what I was thinking? They view me as being the fault of this. They view me as the sinner. And so I really don't have faith that they have faith that I can walk away completely healed. So it really just buried me under more stuff I had to dig out of. There is a place, though, where if you are releasing healing and the Holy Spirit says the reason they got sick was because of this specific sin, you can encourage them and warn them. So now the Lord's like, hey, we're going to be solution focused. And he's starting to inspire faith in him so that this man could receive his miracle. Now, that statement, though, it happened to him so that you could watch him experience God's miracle, implies that God made him blind. We know that's not true, both from the Old Testament and the New Testament, the full context of the word. So in the New King James Version, it says, but that the works of God should be revealed in him. That word but in the Greek is, quote, a marker of more emphatic contrast, like on the contrary. So, in response to darkness, God brought light. In response to blindness, he brought sight. In response to sickness, but he brought healing. In response to demonic oppression, but he brought freedom. You see what I mean? It's like, here was one with God. It's the exact opposite. It's contrary to what the Lord or what the enemy wants to do. Isn't that interesting? So he's like, where there's blindness, I'm going to bring him some eyesight. So when a room is dark, you flip the light on. But the first place that he needed to flip on the light was in that man's heart and in his understanding. Something's different here. So now expectations coming up in this man, right? So he's speaking to him, and he was confronting doctrines that reinforce blindness. That's what he was doing. Where every rabbi that has brought their students and talked about you as if you were not sitting there, as if you couldn't hear, discussing whether it was your sin or your parents' sin, all of a sudden there's a new rabbi that has shown up, And he is telling you, all of that, get rid of it. Everything you've heard from this point back, get rid of it. Because there's a new sheriff in town, right?
And I think we've all seen where people almost refuse to accept a miracle for themselves. Because they feel like they deserve it, or they've done something, when, whatever.
Yeah. And that's what I mean by these doctrines that keep you bound, they keep you hidden. So, and did y'all notice the identity? Look back at that verse. What identity was he saying? On verse 3, just take a moment to look back at that verse and tell me, what identity do you see he's imparting there?
So like a partner with God is what you see that he's kind of talking about.
A little bit, yeah.
Partner.
He's definitely experiencing partnering.
God's manifest in him.
That's a good one. He was basically telling him the reason he was born. You were born for a miracle.
To experience God.
He was born for that miracle. Isn't that amazing? So, yeah, God didn't make him blind. Maybe there was some type of something that ran in the family line. But Jesus Christ showed up, God in the flesh, and said, that is not who you are. You were born for today. Today is your miracle. I love that.
That should be treated the same way for all
Everybody.
diseases, all cancers.
Absolutely. Anything
deafness,
that you're fighting
everything.
in your life, your identity is you were born for a miracle. You were born for that to be reversed. Yeah. And that can shift your theology big time. Whatever you're facing, I was born to overcome this. It's very, very powerful. So now, I'm sure this guy's like, wait a minute, he's talking to me instead of above me or at me, so he's going to listen intently. Now listen to this in the New Living Translation, verses 3 through 4. It was not because of his sins or his parents' sins, Jesus answered. This happened so the power of God could be seen in him. We must quickly carry out the tasks assigned to us by the one who sent us. The night is coming and then no one can work. So Jesus knew that healing this blind man was on his to-do list. Isn't that good? Bringing solutions to people's problems was his assignment, and it's ours as well.
I think it's a twofold thing here on the blindness. It's because we know that was a marker for the Messiah, and only the Messiah.
Now don't be preaching my message before I get there. Go ahead.
So,
Yeah.
So I think it was a double thing. It was the man, but it was also Jesus. This to me.
And it also shows completely two paradigms of thinking. So with the disciples who had been raised in a legalistic system, when you're raised in that type of environment, performance mindset, legalism, harshness, strictness, it doesn't matter, you always immediately go to the problem. You see the problem. The brain naturally does that, but when you have that type of, environment, then you automatically do without even thinking it's weird. God, in the flesh of Jesus Christ, who doesn't think the same way, he didn't see a problem, he saw a solution, right? And so I would definitely gauge your thought processes. I would definitely use the week to say, okay, do I immediately see a problem or do I immediately see a solution? We need to be solutionaries. So where others see problems, we can see the power of God moving. Because seeing problems keeps you in that problem. Seeing solutions is how you get out, right? So and it can be anything from something breaking down to facing a health issue to whatever it is. What's the solution? What is God wanting to do? So we got to be very careful on our thought processes. Also, the other thing is where he said, "For there is coming a dark night when no one will be able to work." He's referring to when the enemy was given that hour, right? To arrest him, beat him, crucify him. The enemy had his hour to do all of his thing, not understanding it was a hook in his nose. But that's what he's referring to. So now we, as Jesus Christ in us, the expectation of glory, have the same assignment. Okay, so we need to make sure we understand that as well. Okay, now verses 6 through 7. Let's break this down. I'm going to read it again. Then Jesus spat on the ground and made some clay with his saliva. Then he anointed the blind man's eyes with clay, and he said to the blind man, "Now go and wash the clay from your eyes in the ritual pool of Siloam." So he went and washed his face, and as he came back, he could see for the first time in his life. Now, why did Jesus spit? Okay, so Jesus, whenever he heals, he's not healing just your physical ailment. He's after your soul ailment. He's after how you see yourself, right? So that's what he's doing. The disciples' questions showed that they were more blind than the blind man. So this is incredible. Listen to this in a commentary. John has left us with a book of pictures. The picture here is the mingling of spit and clay, a picture of the Christ who is God and man. The saliva comes from the mouth, the spoken word, God incarnate. The clay is always a picture of man, for our human vessel is a jar of clay. No doubt the blind man had heard people spit as they walked by him as a sign of disgust. For in that day they believed blindness was caused by a curse. But this day, as he heard Jesus spit on the ground, it was for his healing. So he's doing a complete identity shift in this man. He's taken what others did to him, he's using it, he's reforming who he is, and he's applying healing. Isn't that good?
Well, and I
Turned it from a negative to a positive.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling spit was not considered like the clean thing of the day for the
Oh,
Jews.
no.
No, it was despised.
So
Yeah.
I think
That's
he
a-
was trying to chip away at that mindset of what you think is unclean. I can call clean, you know.
Right.
I can
That was maximized insult.
But if I was
And
that,
actually, I've had a demon spit on me,
Me too.
and it's from an unclean spirit.
if I was that guy sitting there and Jesus was up near me and I heard him spit and I realized he didn't spit on me because I didn't feel it, and I'm like, what did he just do?
Mm-hmm.
And then realizing without sight, I can hear some noises, and then all of a sudden I can feel. I can't
See. Yeah.
see, but everything else is working. I can feel him touching my eyes and putting this moist stuff on me.
Yeah.
What did he just do?
And not only that, but in your saliva is DNA.
I was thinking of that earlier. DNA.
So Jesus used his DNA,
DNA,
to
yeah.
create more eyes.
Oh, Jesus can spit on you.
Isn't that
I thought of
neat?
that.
He imparted God's DNA to create sight. It's incredible.
Yeah, that is very. That story. This is a very powerful.
I love this story. It's one of my favorites. Now, Jesus redeemed even what man had done before, believing he was cursed, not curved, by the way. So everything the enemy means for evil is turned for our good if we are called and loved him, right? Love him, right? Now, that means to me that this blind man loved God. Even before he was healed. I personally believe he loved God. And I'm going to show you even more evidence of why I believe that's the case. But he loved God, in spite of being taught that God did that to him because of some unknown sin. Okay, so let's break it down even more. So 8 through 14. So this caused quite a stir among the people of the neighborhood, for they noticed the blind beggar was now seeing, and they began to say to one another, "Isn't this the blind man who once sat and begged?" Some said, "No, it can't be him." And others said, "But it looks just like him. It has to be him." And all the while the man kept saying, "I'm the one. Yep, it's me." They're still talking over him. So finally they said, "Well, what happened?" And he said, "Well, I met a man named Jesus. And he rubbed clay on my eyes and said, 'Go to the pool named Siloam and wash.' And so I went. And while I was washing the clay from my eyes, I began to see for the very first time ever." Now, guys, I don't want y'all to mistake. He had to walk to the pool, still blind. So sometimes, and this is important, God will require obedience from you without you knowing why he's asking you to do what he's asking you to do. Isn't that interesting? So it was, now, how do we know that you love God? You believe him, right? Jesus said, he has no idea what he did. He knows he heard spit, like Richard said. He heard the sounds. He felt something moist. He never once said, "What are you doing?" And then when he said, "Go to the pool," he didn't say why. So he walks in faith, to the pool. It's immediate obedience. What did Jesus say? You love me if you do what I say. Isn't that good?
Right.
Well, the thought on that pool, that's the same pool Jesus came and healed the guy on the mat that was sitting there.
That was Bethesda.
The lane.
Oh, that was a different pool?
Mhm.
Different group of water.
Mhm. Yeah, that was Bethesda.
That's one where the angel came,
Bethesda was the one where the angel came.
and this one's a pool of ritual, which,
Yeah, this is a totally different one. Which was probably very offensive to the religious leaders that here this blind man is told, of all the places Jesus tells him to go, it's the ritual pool
It's
to
that-
cleanse uncleanness before you can do
that's
anything.
before you went in the temple, they went down there and worshipped.
I have no idea where this is located. I just know it's a ritual pool that anyone who's considered cursed should not go to.
Right.
Well, when they have those, just from the archaeological, I've watched enough of it, that it's not right there, but it's not a very far.
Yeah, he probably didn't
Away.
walk far.
And it's kind of, I would say, to me, what it looks like, the things, it almost looks like a kiddie pool when they step down about
Yeah.
3 steps,
Mhm.
and then there's a little pool where they can go in and then exit.
And see, that's where the Lord is he's attacking religion. So you got to read between the lines. He could have told him to go to any body of water, but instead he's like, hey,
The ritual.
while I'm healing you, I'm just going to go ahead and offend the religious a little bit. And he didn't offend for offense sake. You know, he had a point. He was sending a message. And, but,
Well, and I think maybe he even clarified that what they had been using the pool for was inadequate, their explanation.
well, the rituals,
Yeah.
they were told to wash.
Mhm.
But what they had done is taken everything out of, is out of hand. But they were under the old covenant, so they had to have those pools. But they were kind of like, okay, we've got these things, these rituals we're following, but it's not helping anybody. You know, we're putting burdens on them they can't carry. We're attacking people because they were born blind. All these things are not working. It's kind of like, with everybody, and I don't even know what's going on with all the people that prophesied Trump and all the, I think it's pretty bad. I mean, there's been people just attacking one another, calling each other false prophets and all kinds of stuff. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so you're attacking other people who at least had the guts to say what Holy Spirit was telling them, which I don't think they were wrong. Some may have finished his sentences, and so instead of bringing a solution, they're just kicking people while they're down, right? And the Lord is tired of it. He is tired of it, and he's not going to put up with it. And so that's why there is a shift, because denominationalism, I kind of said that weird, but y'all got it, right? That is where you only have unity around agreement with the word. If anybody comes along and they've made a mistake, or they're saying something that's contrary to what you believe, the only thing left to you is to attack. True ecclesia, family, community is centered around apostolic